a rough
How's
time.
life?
It's pretty awful.
I just.
No.
Too many cooks, too many cooks.
Good.
And welcome to another edition of SportsZone. I am your host, Ben Florence. We got a great panel, a great show for you. Our panel, we got Deepak Bhagat, Aaron Vale back again, Dylan Choate. Guys, welcome back. Good to see all of you. We're going to start some college football action. Some big games last week. Big game of the week, though. Alabama, Mississippi State, 1-5. Number 1 Mississippi State goes down. Alabama wins. Alabama now jumped everybody. Is now number 1 in the college football playoff ranking. Dylan, after this very impressive win by the Crimson Tide, it really wasn't that much of a game. Are they the team to beat now in college football?
I think the way it's been going now, especially the past couple of weeks, obviously they had a very tight game against LSU, but almost all of them are tight games against LSU just because the way the teams are. But it's really been the defense for Alabama that's been helping them. And I mean, that's a story that very frequently happens. Their quarterback, not as experienced over the past couple of years as A.J. McCarron was. But I think if they can keep rolling like they are now, beating the number 1 team in Mississippi State, I think it's a great win for Alabama, and I think that they can continue holding on this number 1 seed. One thing to say at the end of that: Roll Tide.
All right. On that note, Aaron Vale, do you agree? Do all roads to the national championship, the new college football playoff trophy, does it run through Tuscaloosa and the Crimson Tide?
I think so. You know, they've been such a dominant force through like the history of college football, so it means a lot that they were the ones to finally take down Mississippi State. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season turns out, and definitely rolls through Tuscaloosa. So
there you go. Excellent. Deepak, what are your thoughts? You know, Alabama taking down number 5 at home. You look at the rest of their schedule. They play Auburn on Black Friday. Actually, no, that's Saturday. And then you have the SEC championship game. Both games probably should win. But Alabama, are they now virtually a lock to get in?
You know, Benjamin, it's funny because I wish we had footage from last week right now where we had a corny graphic come up. But I said that Bama would be in that top 4 in the playoff. And
Stepping out
everyone
on
kind
a limb.
of laughed at me because I said it was going to be, you know, Ole Miss, followed by Oregon, then Bama, then Baylor. You know, I didn't even put FSU in there. And yet here
you mean Mississippi State.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Mississippi State.
See?
Thank you. But still, and now you have Bama at number 1. But remember when everyone was like, "You're gonna let a 2-loss Bama team in there?" I do believe Bama is the force to beat. And like Dylan said, Roll Tide.
Okay, now moving on, one team that now the last major remaining unbeaten team, unless you're counting Marshall, which I still do, go Thundering Herd. Florida State, it was a very tight game in Miami Gardens against the Miami Hurricanes. Florida State comes out on top. Deepak, this FSU team, somehow they keep on finding a way. They struggle. They get in deficits every game, and yet somehow they keep on winning. Is this team now, they've fallen now a couple weeks in a row in the rankings, even though they haven't lost. Is this team overrated? Or underrated now, considering they're 3rd?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I would say it's interesting in regards that, you know, they're 3rd in the playoff. But they're still ranked 1st overall in the top 25.
Yes.
So there's where
which is irrelevant.
There's where it's interesting. I know it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so I would say they're actually slightly underrated. Yes, they should be doing better against other teams if they're going to be, you know, in this college playoff at number 3. Going to that 4th quarter against Miami, they were down 27-13, only to go 13-3 in the 4th quarter.
Yeah. So
they are underrated in that regard. But I do expect more out of them, if that makes sense at all.
Aaron, the Seminoles, they've battled all kinds of controversy all season long between police episodes and all the shenanigans, multitude of shenanigans surrounding Jameis Winston. This team continues to win. They somehow find a way. Is this team poised to possibly get to the national championship game? Of course, they'll likely be in that semifinal game, provided they don't lose. What are your thoughts?
know if they'll make it to the final. I definitely think that they are going to stay competitive. They've done a really good job separating the off-the-field issues from the level of play, especially that we saw against Miami. But I don't know if they are as qualified as as we talked about, Alabama or maybe Mississippi State. I don't know if they're going to be able to hang in there till the very end, but they'll definitely be competitive. So.
Yeah, and Florida State previously, their best one was that classic against Notre Dame, but now Notre Dame has just looked terrible of late. Dylan, what are your thoughts on FSU right now?
No, I think actually the third place ranking right now is actually a perfect ranking for them. I don't know if I drop them as low as 4, but one thing that I saw that I thought was interesting after this past week is that this win was a classic FSU win, especially based off of last year. They came from behind. It just so happened that this come-behind win came late at the end of the game, and they barely eked it out. Versus last year, they did have a lot of come-from-behind victories, but they ended up winning the game in fairly dominant fashion, where there was Jameis Winston throwing for a touchdown, or winning it with his legs, which he's done many times this last year. This year, I think being the third ranked in the playoff is actually a very fitting ranking, like I said, because that puts them against, as it would now, the second place team. And that's definitely going to be, depending on who it is, I mean, anything can change, as we just saw this past week with a shakeup at the top 4. That could be pretty much anyone in the top 10 even. So it's kind of hard to predict right now. But if they do end up making it into that finals, which I do see them actually doing, I think that no matter who the second place team is, that based off of their experience from last year and the way that they've just had the experience of winning these late games, that they at least make it into the finals and make it a shootout.
All right, the first year of the college football playoff already driving the discussion thus far, has been doing very well. We got more discussion on all sports going ahead on SportsZone, so please stay with us.
Hello and welcome to Ice Time. This is SportsZone's NHL hockey segment. We're here to talk all things hockey. I'm really excited. This is my personal favorite SportsZone segment. I'm Erin Vale. With me is Deepak Bhagat and Andrew Wainwright. See, I know everybody's name now, so this is great. Great to be back. Got a lot of topics on the docket today. So first we're going to go to this 30 for 30 that came out this past week about the role of enforcers in the NHL, focusing on a couple players, their life on the ice, and then after they retired, kind of the health problems that they face and the emotional problems they had later in life. Seeing as the NHL has kind of moved away from the enforcer, from Broad Street bullies, from this physicality and this kind of the brutes of the league have kind of been phased out, and the focus has been more on scoring, speed, just different elements of the game. The game's just changed. So Deepak, I was just wondering on your thoughts about this kind of move away from the enforcers. A lot of teams don't really have that key person anymore. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and I mean, you touched upon it. The game has evolved to focus a lot, obviously, on the purpose of hockey, where you score goals and speed, and it's all about the shot precision, I feel. And you miss what there used to be, where you had these enforcers on the ice. And back then they were playing with no helmets, and you had harder hits, more fights. And that's really a defining characteristic of hockey for a lot of people. You had the Broad Street bullies, like you mentioned, in Philadelphia, where it was, protect each other at all costs. And nowadays, really the only enforcer I could think of is Dan Carcillo, and even he's not really a great player. He's just that jerk who goes around trying to instigate things, and it's never going to end well for him. He's really not that big of a guy at all.
Andrew, I was just wondering what your thoughts were. It's got to be good for the players in terms of their own physicality, their body. It's got to be good for the reputation of the NHL over the years to kind of not be, people are going to hockey games to just watch fights. Like, they want to get away from that, obviously, and I think that they have. So what do you think about this enforcer situation?
I think I got like 3 main points to make. I think, like you said, the game itself is evolving, and so much more emphasis is being on scoring and speed, because I think the league is starting to recognize that to market it to get to a bigger market, there needs to be higher scoring and more of a flashiness that can be seen in the NBA and a lot of other sports. And they want higher scoring games, and you're not going to get that with guys who are going to be goons and are going to be taking out the star players. Now, with that being said, I think a lot of the players enjoy having enforcers around, because it does almost offer a sense of security, and it's been in the game for so long, no one wants to see that part of the game go away. But a lot of the league higher-ups are trying to make that happen to generate more revenue. But I think the biggest thing to notice is that like I don't know if you guys saw, but I think it was 2 weeks ago, Connor McDavid broke his hand in his first first hockey fight in his career ever.
Yeah, I did see that.
And it just talking, because this is supposed to be the next Sidney Crosby, and he's now out 4 to 6 weeks. And it makes you think, should fighting be gone from the game, or should we have enforcers to do the fighting for them? Because the NHL advocates that they want a lot of emotionally started fights instead of just line brawls that are supposed to be staged. And McDavid's was emotionally charged, and he's going to be out for a while and potentially could hurt his career. And so it's just something to think about.
That's really true. Those are really good points. I did see Connor McDavid because obviously I have my eye on him as a Sabres fan. That's all I've really got to look forward to this season.
Right.
Although didn't mention this. I'll mention this now instead of on Thumbs. Rick Jeanneret is back in the booth for the Sabres. He is cancer-free, which is amazing. And he's been calling the first periods of the last few home games for the Sabres. That's just been really good for me. That's the voice that I have heard growing up, so it's just really good to hear him and have him back, and everybody in Buffalo loves him, and he loves Buffalo, so it's a really big positive. So Rick Jeanneret, obviously, great friend of the show. We'll move on to another topic, a different documentary that just also came out this year. We're focusing on documentaries a lot. The Red Army is a documentary about the Soviet team in 1980, the one that the Americans famously beat in the Olympics, not for the gold medal, a lot of people forget that, but the underdog story. The U.S. team was a bunch of college kids who had to be brought together by Coach Herb Brooks. The Soviet team was unbeaten. They were legendary, so good. So this documentary kind of shows their side. I haven't seen it. I've read a lot about it. It looks really interesting to me, but it just kind of called to mind the nature of Olympic hockey then versus now. Like, we've moved towards these all-star teams. So Deepak, what do you think about the significance of Olympic hockey? Do you think we can have anything again like they had in 1980 with that epic game, or do you think that it's kind of lost its luster with the NHL and with the NHL the players being on each national team?
Yeah, I don't see that changing at all. I see these teams being all-star teams as it is, and it's always a U.S. Canada. You always expect U.S. Canada finals right there, because that's where a whole group of these guys come from. No, you know what? I expect it.
It was not a U.S.-Canada final this
I
past
know.
Olympics.
You expect it. You expect
No,
it.
you don't expect it.
I'm sorry, you American? Because
Yeah,
I am.
but the U.S.
I'm
never
American.
puts a good team together.
We need to start doing that more often. But I always see these all-star teams just coming around, and you're never going to see a team of just a bunch of misfits, college kids, coming together who can topple, what was obviously considered one of the greatest teams, international teams ever assembled in the Soviets. And that was really just that key defining moment between the Cold War, where you're able to have a moment of, not so much life-threatening fear, more like win it for your own country kind of thing.
Right. Andrew, I know that it seems like every few years they kind of bring back this debate of like, oh, well, is there any chance that it'll return to amateurs, it'll return to college players? Do you foresee that happening? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it could. It's just there's the World Junior Championship too,
right?
And it's the same format as the Olympics, where it's the Russians, the Swedes, the Finns, the Canadians, and the U.S. And if you want an amateur, you can always watch that, and they're great games. They really are, and it gives you a showcase as to who's going to be good in the NHL and the great prospects. I don't see it returning to the 1980 U.S. Olympic team just for that reason. Just for that reason solely, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that's fine. That's a good point. In other news, the Winter Classic this year is going to be held very close to us here at AU. It'll be played at Nats Park. It'll be the Capitals versus the Blackhawks on New Year's Day, which is great. The Winter Classic has obviously been a huge success for the league. But let's not forget where the first Winter Classic was, currently snowed in Ralph Wilson Stadium. But still interesting to me that they call it a classic if it happens every year, but that's beside the point. Semantics. Deepak, what are your thoughts on the Winter Classic? Predictions? What are you looking forward to? Are you going to watch the game?
I'm probably not going to watch the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fair. It's fair.
I can't help it. Obviously it's going to be, in my opinion, a Blackhawks win easily. While the Caps are kind of good. They're not as dominant as a force as the Blackhawks are. It's gonna be a good game. I won't watch it, but it'll be a good game.
Okay, Andrew,
I think it can go either way. I think they already played each other this year, and if I remember correctly, I think the Caps won.
Yeah.
So
You know what?
Totally different atmosphere, Winter
Yeah.
Classic. But I think if the Caps pull together, I think they have just as good as a team as the Blackhawks do if they just play correctly.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a really good game. So
Chicago.
thanks for watching Ice Time. Stay tuned for more Sports Zone coming up after this.
Get in the third.
Welcome back to Sports Zone. This is your favorite segment, as it is mine. This is Getting to Third Base. We got some of the usual folks next to me. Deepak, Dan, Aviva joining us again. We did not scare her away after she jumped on that last segment a couple weeks ago with us. Great to see all these guys back. End of the baseball season. We know we've been grieving about that over the past couple of weeks, but that also means a new season starting up, and that's the hot stove season. Even though it's not officially the hot stove, winter meetings haven't hit, GMs aren't meeting in hotels and getting all these deals done, but players are flying over the country, signings are being made, contracts being paid. First, we're going to start out with the biggest breaking news this past week, and that's Giancarlo Stanton of the Miami Marlins. We all know, great player. He's been rumored to be in trade rumors for the past couple of years, but the Miami Marlins are sticking with him. He recently just signed a $325 million deal to stay in Miami, making it the largest sports contract of all of the major sports at $325 million. Deepak, what was your first reaction to this deal?
Holy bleep. And I'll say it as such because you see what they tried to do a few years ago when they first opened their new ballpark, bringing in all these new players, bringing in Ozzie as their manager. Mm-hmm. So they had all that money to spend. You're like, well, they were like, oh, it's the tax dollars that's paying for all this. Sure. Where'd all that money go? They still had to pay some of these contracts even after they traded these guys. And you look at another superstar that's in the game right now, Miguel Cabrera, who was one of their guys, won the World Series with them in 2003. They didn't want to give him a huge contract. Look how he's faring right now. Mm-hmm. And so, understandably, you want to base your franchise around a guy, and that is Stanton. 13 years, though, seemed a little too long for me. He'll be 38 at the end. His career batting average is a 279, and he only has 85 career home runs, I believe, right now.
Okay.
Maybe slightly more. So what are we looking at here? Are we looking at a guy who, yes, he had a great season this year. Yes, he finished second in MVP. But will that carry for the next 13 years, even if not at the high level, at a consistent pace?
Okay. And Dan, 13 years, $325 million. Good deal, bad deal, horrible deal? What do you think?
This is an interesting deal. I think it's a very good deal for the Marlins. I mean, you look at it, I did a touch of research on this. They paid all of their players combined last year $160 million. Yeah. So it is already double their entire salary cap for every player last year. Clearly they had this money and they were very, very set on locking down their guy. And Stan is 100% their guy. He's the cornerstone of that franchise. I mean, he hits third. He was the National League home run leader despite missing the last month of the year. He plays a really, really nice right field, which I think is an underrated part of his game. He's got a really good arm, and he's surprisingly athletic for a guy as big as he is. As Deepak said, he will be 38 by the end, so that's iffy, but teams always find a way to work around that age thing, whether it's moving positions around or whatever, and I think this is a very aggressive move from the Marlins, and despite being a Mets fan, I think it's a good move by the Marlins.
Okay. Aggressive move, good move. Aviva, $325 million. We've said that a lot. Is someone like Giancarlo Stanton worth $325 million?
I think he actually is worth that much money, even though it's a crazy amount. He, as Deepak said, he was second in MVP last year. But again, $325 million is a lot for 13 years, and is that much money worth 13 years? I don't know. But as his stats from last year, and if he continues doing that, then yes, I think it's worth it. But 13 years is a lot of years, and his stats might go down, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would have to agree with something that Dan said is the fact that this shows that they're really committing to Giancarlo Stanton, especially among all the trade rumors and whether he'd leave Miami. They're committed to him for 13 years, or I think there's an opt-out at 6 or 7, which kind of gives them 6 or 7 years to build a franchise around him. And it's one of those things that if you look at it now, think of the players that they have. They have him. They have
Denny Echeverria.
what's the pitcher? I can't.
Jose Fernandez.
Jose Fernandez. I couldn't remember. I almost said Felix Hernandez, and that would have been wrong. Jose Fernandez. They're building around him. All that sort of stuff that they're devoting all of this money, 6 or 7 years. That gives them the chance to build a great contending team, or he can leave. He can opt out and leave at that point. But that's all the time that we got right now for baseball. More hot stove news coming out with trades and signings. So keep it locked here, and you'll get it all.
All right, welcome back to SportsZone. Thank you for staying with us from a college football main panel. Now we're going to talk a little NFL action. First up, Green Bay Packers, a team I have no ties to.
No.
Two
None.
straight wins in a row in dominating fashion. Both wins with scoring over 50 points. Aaron Vail, Green Bay Packers, how good of a team are they right now?
Well, I think they did get a little bit lucky playing the Eagles with Mark Sanchez. We all knew, at least those of us who are familiar with the AFC East and familiar with Mark Sanchez's play, that there was going to be some cracks in the statue, if you will, in the stone there. So I think they got lucky playing the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles are a very competitive team, but Green Bay really knows how to shut them down and knows how to take advantage of the weaknesses of the Eagles, of Mark Sanchez, and obviously Aaron Rodgers has been so consistent, so good as of late. So he's really coming into his own in this later part of the season. So they are forced to be reckoned with, as they say.
All right, Deepak, this is interesting because you are an Eagles fan.
I am. AU
so
Eagles.
AU
We all
Eagles
are
as
AU
well.
Eagles.
So, all right, break down the Packers. I know you had a vested interest in Sunday afternoon's game, and of course it didn't go out.
It didn't go my way.
It didn't go your way. So, but what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, we talked about it in the back how I expected that to happen, albeit it was a blowout to an extent. Now we did score 20 points, which not great, but that is respectable in a regular old game. But I did expect something of that sort of nature to happen. The Pack, they've been on a tear. You're at Lambeau Field, where I'm sure all these guys, obviously on the Packers team, are comfortable. In negative 50, whatever it is, degree weather. Leap in and you know what? I'm talking.
Wow.
He's still better.
With the cold and with the loud atmosphere, and so seeing obviously a dominant Aaron Rodgers, someone who I feel could easily win an MVP this year, just by his play alone. Mark Sanchez didn't make too many mistakes. Yes, he threw 2 picks, but he didn't butt fumble. He didn't cave under pressure. It was a regular old game that you would probably see have another average quarterback, which is what we have right now. So, go Pack, go.
Yeah, there you have it. All right, Dylan, the Packers are not even in first place right now because the Lions have the tiebreaker. They have the same record. Is this team, a Packers team, a threat to take the conference and get to Glendale for the Super Bowl?
I think it definitely is. They are definitely a threat. I mean, the Pack, are almost always going to have a consistent team just based off of the players that are around Aaron Rodgers and everything like that. But I think the key that it all goes back to was the beginning of the season when they didn't start out on the best foot. Eddie Lacy really wasn't playing his best. Aaron Rodgers went on record, had that whole, I have one word for you, relax, all that sort of stuff. And since then, they've definitely been rolling. Whether you tie it all back to that one word and all that sort of stuff is up for debate. But I think now Eddie Lacy has been the runner that they drafted him to be. Aaron Rodgers has definitely been playing at the Aaron Rodgers level, and Jordy Nelson has been putting up big numbers week in, week out, whether it's racking up tons of yards and touchdowns or just being there as a consistent receiver and grabbing just tons of passes a game pretty much. If they can keep playing like this, if they don't face any serious injuries, I think that they definitely continue and can probably take the conference. I know we were talking in the back about how they have Minnesota this upcoming week, which most likely is a win for them there. There's a tough game next week after that against the New England Patriots, which the way both teams are rolling, I think could pretty much go either way right now. But the Pack, I can definitely see them taking the conference, leading that momentum into the playoffs, and making a very, very, very strong playoff push, especially the way they're playing right now. It's hard not to put them in the Super Bowl.
All right, now for teams that are not in the contention for the Super Bowl, at least at this point. The NFC South, clearly the worst division in football. First place Atlanta Falcons, 4-6. I mean, that's just terrible. Am I right, Deepak? Worst division football?
It's absolutely the worst. I mean, you're looking at a team, a Falcons team no less, that for the past, without last year, but those 3 years prior, we're a threat, and especially when I drafted Julio Jones, who was supposed to be like an explosive threat and really hasn't been. Well, not this year.
Consistent.
I don't know about that.
I mean,
I may debate you on
I'm
that.
on my fantasy team, so.
You know what? Fine. And look where your fantasy team is now, Aaron Vale.
Not
Okay,
league, so
we're talking trash.
in a separate league.
But so you have a team like that, and you also have the Super Bowl champions from just 4 years ago, the New Orleans Saints. A team that's also floundering around in there, as well as you have those Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton, who's supposed to bring them just fortune and fame and wins, and hasn't done so.
Yeah.
So it's just an overall terrible division. I mean, hey, I have faith in the Bucks. Look at Mike Evans and Mike Glennon. Go Bucks, go!
All right, let's not get carried away. Dylan, I know
knows
you wanted
every team in the NFC South.
Yeah.
In case anybody was.
Dylan, I
curious.
know you wanted to make a point before I cut you off and went to deep.
Yeah, it's all good.
So what do you got?
All I wanted to say is that the way the playoffs work, technically, at least one of these teams is going to be in Super Bowl contention because they're going to make the playoffs.
Okay.
Whether that means that they actually succeed or not is the question there. But it's definitely been easily the worst conference in football, whether it's just inconsistent play on the Atlanta Falcons' part. I know they started out strong. Matt Ryan was having really good games. But each team, I think, in this division has a glaring weakness.
Yeah.
That is Atlanta's inconsistent play, the New Orleans Saints and their running back issues. They finally got Mark Ingram back.
Yeah.
But they had so many injuries there. Jimmy Graham was injured.
God-awful.
Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton was injured, and the Bucks are just the Bucks, and they have issues every single year. So I definitely would say worst conference in football.
All right, Aaron, what are your thoughts, real quick?
Definitely the Cam Newton factor coming back from that rib injury has been pretty noticeable. He's been taking a beating lately. Carolina's offensive line has not been protecting him well, so I think that's definitely a factor in Carolina's offense and why they're not maybe closer to the top of the division as they would be. Again, we mentioned Matt Ryan, the boy next door at NFL quarterback. Difficult to see him struggle at times, but the division as a whole is just not looking great, and it's going to be interesting to see what 8-8 team wins the division,
As they say, too many cooks can spoil the broth.
They do say that. They do say that.
This is SportsZone. Hello and welcome to our NBA segment, Throwing It Up. I'm Ben Florence. What is your name?
The Mean Machine, Rasheed Wallace.
Speaking of Rasheed Wallace, today actually is the 10th anniversary of one of the great moments in NBA history, the Malice at the Palace, the epic brawl between the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit Pistons. It was resulted in a great deal of suspensions, virtually significantly hampered the career of Ron Artest, who's not even known by that anymore. Jaron, what is your lasting memories of that infamous moment in Auburn Hills?
I mean, it's just there's nothing like it. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it in sports. You literally had an athlete go into the crowd, not like a Lambeau leap, but like an athlete go into the crowd, jump over stands, and just beat the fans up. I've never seen it, or in the crowd reaction too. I watched the footage again yesterday. I watch it. I'm pretty much, it's always talked about every year, but it's like the 10th time. It's the 10th anniversary, so I watched it again. I've just never seen a crowd reaction to anything in my life. Like watching the Pacers player get off the floor, they were throwing literally anything and everything they had in their hands at these players. I'm surprised there actually weren't any injuries. Like they were throwing beer cans and bottles. I'm surprised again. You had the suspensions, but I'm surprised there weren't any players out due to injury. But I mean, if in the long run, in the grand scheme of things, it was. I think it's gonna be terrible to say, Julie. The fans were injured, the horrible imagery and everything. But in the long run, I think this might have helped the NBA a little bit in the sense that, I think a problem with a lot of major league games that's been curtailed a little bit in recent years is that certain fans think it's okay to be out of control drunk at these games, which leads to violent brawls and leads to violence and profanity. It kind of makes these events less family friendly and more kind of like protect yourself in a way. The NBA, of course, after this incident, implemented the 2 alcoholic beverage per person and no beverage sales after the third quarter. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think it helped the NBA's brand in the long run, even though that's a Darren Rovell thing to say.
That is a Darren Rovell thing.
The Rovellian thing.
That's why I was saying, it's interesting. Steven Jackson was one of the guys, on the Pacers. Of course, you remember Ron Artest, but it was Steven Jackson, Jamal Tinsley, Jermaine O'Neal. It was a pretty combustible group of guys, and that was also going to be a very good Pacers team. But Steven Jackson went on the highly questionable Dan Levitard, Bomani Jones show like a couple months ago, and he was like, "Yeah, it did feel in a weird way kind of good to beat up the fans." Which, I mean, they were throwing stuff at him. And people forget Ron Artest was lying down.
Yeah, he
on
was
the
like,
table,
no one had
and
done part of it.
somebody threw a beer at him. Of course, he then went on and went to go slug the wrong guy, in the fans, but
But ironically enough, he made good with the fan that actually threw the bottle. I mean, the beer bottle at him.
Well, it wasn't a beer bottle.
I mean, I guess a beer cup, whatever.
Yeah, cup of beer. So, all right. So we're gonna move on from that. We're going to continue our NBA discussion. You got anything on your mind you want to get off your chest?
So anything off my chest? Anthony Davis, talked about it last week. Another monster game, monster week. There's just nothing else to say. This is probably the most interesting player to actually watch. He's actually the most interesting player to watch and to see develop. I can actually remember,
Really?
I think so. I mean,
more than like LeBron.
I think so because here's the thing. He's a power forward. Keep in mind, he's a power forward. He's a power forward, and he's putting up
Nice to see we solved that.
Well,
I thought he was a shooting guard.
I thought he was the point guard. Well, again, they have Austin Rivers on their roster, so they need as many guards as they can handle. But he's for a power forward, he's putting up like incredible, like almost like Shaq numbers in a way. It's like, it's really something incredible to watch. He's very athletic. If he just works a little bit more on defense, he can get Defensive Player of the Year honors. He put up the points, he put up the blocks, he put up the rebounds. It's just he's such a dynamic player, and he's just so interesting to watch. And I think it's been more fun watching him develop than let's say Kyrie. I mean, I'm trying to think of like recent number 1 picks. I would say Kyrie, Rose, and all those players.
More than Rose. I mean, Rose was an MVP.
He was an MVP, but we knew. I think he put up the same amount of numbers per year. I think he put when he wasn't hurt, outside of his rookie year, of course. I think he's been putting up same type of solid numbers of years. Anthony Davis took a massive jump from his freshman year numbers to his sophomore numbers, and even from his sophomore to this, he's been taking like massive jumps. Rose has kind of been like he went up and then he kind of like stayed the same. Davis has just been going up and up each year, and again, it's kind of unfortunate to watch the development of Rose because of all the injuries.
All right, so it's very early, but this is probably our last episode of semester. So we're going to hand out some hardware. Who's been the MVP of the league thus far?
I'm going to go with my boy Davis.
Okay, how about Defensive Player of the Year?
It's too early.
Coach of the Year?
Coach of the Year. Let's see how the
Who's going to be in the NBA Finals?
NBA Finals. Cavaliers versus Sacramento Kings. But not actually, no. Cavaliers, I originally had the Cavaliers versus the Thunder. That's not happening anymore.
Yeah, it's not happening. The segment has been a fiasco, and for that I apologize. We got some more SportsZone coming your way, so keep it locked.
Pop, lock, and drop it.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. This is one of our newer segments, and by newer segments, I mean it just kind of focuses on football, but this is Hitch and Go. And as you've known for the past couple of weeks, we're kind of trying to change around the title, so when you finally found one that you like, that we say, tweet us. Aaron takes care of all of that. But this week, we got Deepak, Dan, and Vince on with us, talking about everything football, anything we can talk about that we don't cover in the main panel. First one that we're going to talk about, big news coming out of Minnesota this past week, and pretty much the NFL in general, but that's the fact that Adrian Peterson has been suspended for the rest of the season without pay by the NFL. We're going to kind of talk about that a little bit. I know some people were kind of skeptical of whether the NFL would actually suspend him for the rest of the season and whether they would step up, especially after the whole issue with Ray Rice earlier in the year. We'll start out with Deepak. Good move, bad move by the NFL for doing something like this?
It's a good move for the NFL. I mean, you don't want to, have someone who has these allegations against them, and it would definitely not look good on them if they said, yeah, Adrian can play, but, we won't let Ray back, Like, obviously, both offenses are extremely heinous, and I don't care how great of a player you are, like, if you're going to break not only a code of conduct, instilled by the NFL, but basically by society as a whole, like, you should not be out there. You should be prosecuted, in my opinion. So I like how the NFL is not, letting him play this year.
Yeah, no, I think they've definitely learned from what they did with the whole Ray Rice issue and kind of how that went down. But Dan, let's throw this one to you. Good move, bad move by the NFL. Did they handle this one properly?
Not only was it a good move, this was the only move. This is the only move they could have made, especially considering how badly they screwed up the Ray Rice thing. 100% the right decision. As Deepak said, this is not an act that should be forgiven that quickly. And 100% the right move. He pled guilty to take lesser charges in court, but the NFL doesn't have to do that. So, yeah, this was 100% the right decision to make.
Okay. And we're going to kind of build off what Dan just said there, right, Vince? He said this was the only move. Now, he says it's the only move, but like I said, there was a lot of people out there that I spoke to at least that thought that he was going to end up playing, whether the NFL was going to let him or the Vikings were going to let him. Do you agree with Dan that this was the only move they could have made, or the NFL could have let it go and it should have been on the Vikings?
I feel like, no, this is on the NFL. I agree with Dan. This is really the only move that the NFL could have made in this situation. To let him back in is saying that they think child abuse is of a lesser degree than domestic violence, and really to make a comment like that at all really is not something the NFL should be making. They should treat all of these cases outside of football as the bad acts against society that they are, and those are not something that they want to be associated with. So I agree that it's really the only move that the NFL could make in this situation.
No, that is very true. They definitely stepped up to the plate for this one, at least, with what they had to do, and definitely, I think, started off in the right direction after fixing what they messed up with the Ray Rice thing. Now, I'm going to put three of you guys on the spot right now. He's suspended for the rest of the season. We don't know what's happening in court, if anything is going to go that way. Does Adrian Peterson stay a Minnesota Viking, and does he play next season? And the reason I ask that is because we all know the Ray Rice thing has kind of been solved for the most part, but he was then dropped by the Ravens. Teams were looking at picking him up, everything like that. He's still a Viking at this point. What do you think this bodes for next season? And we'll just go down the line. Deepak.
I don't see him playing for the Vikings anymore. He will have, however, play next season only because of a man named Jerry Jones. No, I mean, we all say it as a joke, but I take it legitimately, with all seriousness, that we remember going into this season, that leaked phone call that happened between Adrian Peterson and Jerry Jones saying, hey, you're a Dallas kid, I want you to come back, I want you to play for Dallas. And if Jerry Jones, if we've learned anything from the Cowboys organization, they have that money, and sadly they have that pull, and while he won't be a Viking, he will be playing next year.
Okay, Dan, what do you think?
I'm inclined to agree with all but one point. I don't think he goes to the Cowboys. He will not be a Viking next year. I do think a team will pick him up. But, I mean, the Cowboys have this guy, DeMarco Murray, who's having on pace for a record season. Unless they're going to cut him after that, which I don't see happening, I find it hard to see Peterson in Dallas. But some team will pick him up that needs a running back, that I can see.
Okay, and Vince, your opinion?
Yeah, I agree. He will not be a Minnesota Viking, but he will be somewhere because teams will value his talent on the field a little bit greater than the baggage that he carries. And as we've seen in this NFL, at least this year, running backs come at a premium, and he's one of the best, and he's one of the best at his trade, and unfortunately that'll outweigh what he's done in the past. So I think he will play again.
Okay. And what we're going to actually do is we're going to change things up a little bit. We're actually going to stay on this topic right now of Adrian Peterson. I know we talked about maybe trying to talk about rookie wide receivers, but the one thing I saw here is that each of you think that he's going to be leaving Minnesota. Like I said when I first started out, there was a lot of people that I spoke to that said, oh, he's going to play this season even, and that he's going to stay with Minnesota. Why do you guys think he's going to be leaving Minnesota? I mean, to be the counter argument there, he's coming off great seasons over the past couple of years after coming back from his torn ACLs. When he's on. He's arguably the best running back in the game. Do they just drop him and let him go, or is someone going to be put a trade together for this guy? Deepak?
I think they drop him immediately because you see they obviously are still dealing with the PR nightmare with the kicker and those comments that came out when he was in support of gay rights, but the coaches weren't. And as well as today, they even picked up Ben Tate. So you know that they've already decided, hey, we're going to go with Matt Isiata as our starter, the guy who gets touchdowns on short carries. But Ben Tate can rack up a few yards. We'll take what we can get.
Okay. The flashing lights in the back, so we're going to go pretty quickly on this. Dan, do they drop him, trade him? Is there a trade value for him?
I think if the Vikings played their cards right, maybe they can get an offer for him, but I think it's much more likely that they just cut him and cut ties as the Ravens did with Ray Rice. It's easier and it's neater, and they don't have to deal with anything after that. It's easier to cut him.
Okay. Vince, what do you think? Can be a clean sweep again?
Yeah, I think they're just going to wash their hands of this situation, just out of sight, out of mind. He will be cut.
Okay, there you have it, guys. Obviously, this is going to be a continuing story. We might come back to this one in the future just because everything's happening and everything's very new. But this was it for Hitch and Go. Come back next week and see what we're talking about. This is SportsZone.
And we welcome you back to the final segment of the show. Dylan Schode unfortunately had to go off, take care of some. Actually, I have no idea where he went. We got Jaron Berman here with us, which is probably going to end up being a fiasco. But anyways, it's good for the segment, which is thumbs up, thumbs down. What's good, what's bad about anything in the world today. And Jaron Berman, we're going to start off with you, which we probably may regret in about a couple minutes. But
Definitely will regret it.
Okay.
Thanks for the confidence. I'm going to give a thumbs up to the Eagles and Packers offense. Pretty much, I have the Eagles' best two wide receivers, the Packers running back, and Randall Cobb, and they've driven me to 7-4. So big thumbs up to them. I'm going to give a thumbs up, thumbs down on this one. Thumbs down, as we've discussed, today was the 10th anniversary of the Malice at the Palace, so unfortunately it's a thumbs down. But thumbs up in that case because, since that event there's been new rules and everything, and basketball games a little bit more, easier, more family friendly, more easy to go to and everything. So thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down on that one.
What?
It's a thumbs up and a thumbs down. It's bad and it's good. Not everything's black and white.
Right there.
All right, so
I'll let it go.
See, he's letting it go.
That's because he's giving up hope on you.
Okay,
that's not the first time it's been said to me. But
That's
moving onwards, I'm going to give my customary thumbs up to Mike Francesa. I was told that he talked about a snowblower today. I mean, he's mic'd up and he's ready to go. Finish it.
No.
All right. Well, there goes that. Big thumbs up. We have Aaron Vale back this week. Gonna clap on that. See, there you go. See, I'm not a total jerk.
I feel so welcome.
See, I'm not a total jerk unlike Deepak.
Right?
What? Hot for ya.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And big thumbs down for the weather. It was really cold yesterday, and I was really not happy about
That's
that.
right.
Wasn't that offensive this week?
Okay. Aaron Vale.
Just kidding. Okay. We're going to start with, this is kind of a package. It's a general thumbs down.
Fantastic.
Similar to the weather, to the Snowvember situation in Buffalo right now. Thumbs down to my family being snowed in everywhere.
What?
They're all fine and healthy, and they have
Break
food,
out the
They don't have
whatever, but they are getting a little stir crazy. My cousin's tweets have been slowly becoming more depressing. So, are we ever going to make it out again? So, thumbs down to that. Thumbs up to the Bills players' reaction to snow, because I think some of them have never seen snow before in their lives, and this is the first big snowstorm of the season. So, thumbs up to that. Hilarious. Sammy Watkins doesn't really know how to handle it. Anthony Booby Dixon also does not know how to handle snow. So, thumbs up because that was entertaining.
Yep.
Next, thumbs up, some entertainment. The new Cinderella adaptation trailer came out today.
God.
March. Okay.
Help.
Interesting. I was not that excited, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is actually going to be really interesting.
I'm excited.
Thumbs up to after break, December 2nd and 3rd, are the
Big
Arrow
games.
and Flash crossover episodes, which are going to be like super
a thing.
cool.
Maybe people
So
watch the
thumbs up
CW.
to the CW because they've sucked me into 2 other shows, which is like, okay, so thumbs down to that too, partially. And
Yes.
another thumbs up and thumbs down related to the back to the Buffalo weather. The Bills are now paying people to shovel out Ralph Wilson Stadium
$10 an
to
hour.
get to the so we can have
What
the
the
game on
deal?
Sunday. So that maybe they should shovel out the rest of the city of Buffalo also.
Yes.
But hopefully
to
the
pay
game will
them.
be in Western New York this weekend. If not in Buffalo, maybe in Syracuse. But as long as it occurs,
Or Toronto.
or no,
It's not
probably
gonna be
not. So
will not be in Toronto.
thumbs up to Thanksgiving next week also.
Yes.
So big thumbs up to that. That's
All
it.
right. Mr. Brigott, what do you got?
Thumbs up,
I
first
don't know
off.
what that was.
It's a thumbs up. Thumbs up. Yeah, isn't it?
Jazz hands.
Thumbs up to MLB Hot Stove. Really heating up. You got
Literally.
You got that big old signing by the Marlins, 13 years, $325 million
Hot off the griddle.
to Giancarlo Stanton. Other big trades include Jason Hayward going to the Cards for Shelby Miller, and then a big signing out of Toronto with Russell Martin going home because he is Canadian to the Blue Jays for $55 million, and then Billy Butler to Oakland. Another thumbs up to the fact that I actually understood half of what Jaron said, so he doesn't always talk very garbled. So well done.
Go home.
Tensions are
Thumbs
high
down.
on
Go
this
home.
segment.
Thumbs down, because Jaron's here.
That's fair.
Okay.
And thumbs
Okay.
down to the Eagles for kind of, even though I expected them to get blown out by the Pack, they got, blown out by the Pack.
So then,
And I also started Matt Stafford this week in fantasy and got killed. Yeah, I'm still the number 1 seed in that league. Thumbs up to Michael Carter-Williams for saying, hey, it's not tanking. We're actually trying. So the Sixers who are 0-10.
that's right.
I kind of have hope.
Don't.
You don't.
I don't. But I still love you, so thumbs up to you guys. Thumbs up to Mike Friel, who has been keeping up with the show almost as much as he keeps up with the Kardashians.
Joking?
No, he watches it on the regular.
Does he take notes?
He
Is
Snapchats
he homesick?
me. He Snapchats me little bits and pieces from our shows.
Oh, God.
That's
Oh, that's cute.
hi, Mike.
We miss him, Mike. We love you.
Do we really?
Ben loves you.
Oh, God.
You and Ben, you're like homies.
I wouldn't go that
I'm
far.
pretty sure you guys got the Jersey pride going on.
That is true.
From the
Oh,
Dirty
yeah,
Jers.
South Jersey.
Running the streets of the
Ben,
shore.
I think it's your
All
turn.
right.
It is my turn. Thumbs up to, for lack of anything else, because again, I'm completely unprepared for this. Thumbs up to Professor Alan Lickman. You're my boy. Aaron Bale knows what's up.
Great class.
Great class. All the very bizarre things. Also, he had a new shirt on, and it had
Oh, yeah, I saw
it had
that.
still had the size thing on it, which was awesome. Keeping it
Very
real. Thumbs up to I'm actually surprised that Mike Friel actually watches the show. I don't even think my parents watch it anymore.
Oh.
So
I don't
Mike
think anyone's
Friel
parents watch
across
this
the
Oh,
pond.
God.
Thumbs up to that.
SportsZone's bi-continental.
That's right.
Multinational.
Streaming live.
That's right.
International following.
International
SportsZone.
love, as Pitbull would say.
Notorious B.I.G.
International
Why?
love.
Because
Thumbs
you're
up to
International love.
Bull,
Thumbs up to
Karen.
Pitbull.
Oh, thumbs down to Pitbull.
Dale.
Thumbs up to Drunken
Fine.
Love.
Another
Dale,
as-
Dale.
Thumbs up to the 90s music.
All right, thumbs up to AU men's basketball, speaking of Pitbull, because they won the home opener against St. Francis, PA. I was late because that's good to tie into my thumbs down. Thumbs down to the Metro bus system. It was a disgrace. I had to wait forever, then I had to get an Uber. I was 15 minutes late to the aforementioned Professor Lickman's class, and then I was 10 minutes late to the start of the basketball game, so Monday night. Not fun. Beyond that, thank you for watching SportsZone, for all of the people up here and all their squabbling. To all the people and their squabbling in the back and all your squabbling at home or wherever you may be watching us. This has been SportsZone. Thank you for watching. We will see you next semester, maybe.